Have videos like these made you think you could have ADHD? Well, you're not alone. More and more people are turning to social media for advice.
As well as having an increase in formal diagnosis, we have seen an increase in people who sort of self-identify or self-diagnose as having these conditions.
On TikTok, hashtag ADHD has nearly 4 million posts, and the way the algorithm works means once you like a video related to a certain topic, similar videos will keep getting pushed onto your For You page.
There's people that might see so much and then start to see themselves in that content because they think it's being pushed to me, so it must be me, and you become defined by what you're being shown.
In this video, we speak to an expert who will myth bust some of the viral ADHD symptoms on TikTok, and we'll ask people who have been diagnosed or self-diagnosed with ADHD what they think about their experience with this sort of content. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects behaviour and concentration. You probably know someone with ADHD. It affects around 2.6 million people in the UK, and it's estimated that a further 2 million people in the UK have ADHD but don't have an official diagnosis yet, which could be why so many people are turning to social media to help get answers. Now, there are different types of therapy and medication available. ADHD is a spectrum, and the symptoms vary for each person. This is just one example looking at the range. Some TikTokers suggest symptoms can vary from playing the same song on repeat to ADHD paralysis. While these videos may be useful in raising awareness, they're not always right. One study found that almost 3/4 of misleading TikToks on ADHD emphasize symptoms that could fit multiple disorders. We picked some viral ADHD symptoms and asked our expert Dr. Hannah Hobson to do some myth busting. So let me put some of these ideas to you. You can tell me if you think they're a myth or not. Daydreaming or trouble focusing.
That can be a symptom of ADHD.
Listening to the same song on repeat.
No, I don't think so.
There was a study a few years ago, about 80% of us have a song that we like to listen to every day.
Impulsive decision making.
Can be, yep.
Poor time management.
Yes, can be.
Sensitivity or difficulty controlling emotions.
It can be, yes.
Hyperfocus.
Yes, yeah, that can be.
We tend to think of people with ADHD as unable to pay attention at all, but actually, when you get into something you're really engaged with, you can get into these states of hyperfocus.
ADHD paralysis.
Can be, yes. It describes when people with ADHD struggle to initiate tasks, so to start a task that they need to get done.
Forgetfulness.
Yes, that can be.
Interrupting conversations.
Yes, can be.
And guessing movie plots.
I think that's just being into your movies and having watched too many of them that you start to work out what's going to happen. I don't think it's a symptom of ADHD.
If you're watching this and you're thinking, I do some of those things, what does that mean?
So all of those, a person who is neurotypical, who doesn't have autism, who doesn't have ADHD, we will all experience those, probably every day. The other thing is that a lot of those aren't necessarily very specific to ADHD. They can reflect something else. Other conditions like autism, or they can reflect anxiety, or they can reflect sleep problems.
Well, we'll speak to Hannah again later, but first let's hear from some people sharing their own experiences of neurodiversity. Stefan has been diagnosed with ADHD and autism. Danny has recently been diagnosed with ADHD and has OCD too. And Kayhan thinks she could have ADHD. What made you think that you had ADHD?
When you hear about something or you know there's something that's not quite right, for sake of argument, with you, you're always kind of looking for your place to fit. And every time someone mentioned someone that had ADHD, I was like, I should probably look into that. And then I found the official paper that you'll do with your GP as well. And I don't test well, but I tested very well there.
When I was looking at it and looking at the symptoms, some of the examples and what they go through, it was a bit like, sounds a bit like me. But I never went ahead and got diagnosed for it or went out to go to the GP or anything.
And the people watching your videos, Stephanie, do you think, and self-diagnosing, they're using you to figure out what's going on with them?
All the time. A lot of the symptoms of ADHD are not specific to ADHD, in that sometimes a neuronormative person can be hyperactive. It's more the extent to which you do these things to the point where they become debilitating and they stop you from being able to do other things in your daily life.
You've got all this content telling you what the symptoms are, and then don't you have an awful lot of people thinking, well, I'm a little bit ADHD. And is that real?
How many people would get missed if there wasn't that content there? where else would you go for it? No one goes to the doctors and goes, I just want a checkup. And they go, cool, should we do an ADHD test? You have to go armed with that knowledge.
With me, if I didn't see it on TikTok, I probably wouldn't even think about me having ADHD.
These things need to be spoken about. And even if there are people that are going around saying, oh yeah, I'm just a little bit ADHD, I'm a little bit this, I'm a little bit that, like, at least people are talking about it.
Do you think that TikTok does more harm than good or more good than harm?
What's really harmful is how easy it is to trivialise something, but how hard it is to then discuss what it actually is and further that conversation. Like when people are just doing a makeup video and they're like, oh, forgive my makeup brushes being in this order, it's my OCD. How do you jump into the comments and go, actually no, my OCD makes me think that that speed bump that I went over was a person, so I've sat by the road for 3 hours to make sure that the police didn't come and get me? Like, how do I explain that in a comment section to someone that's just used it as a throwaway comment?
It can be good sometimes, other times it's not, because it's informative, but then other times it's kind of rude and disrespectful to people who do have ADHD, because then they're like, well, you're just making me feel bad for having it.
Do you think that social media like TikTok, for example, can be used as a public health tool?
It's not a public health tool, so I wouldn't advise people to go on TikTok to diagnose themselves, but use it to educate yourself on yourself and to help you, like, when you go to, if you are looking for a diagnosis. So it's a supporting tool, not a public health tool. I think that would be
public
dangerous.
Health is the diet, TikTok is a supplement, is what I'd describe it as. You take it to better it as part of the full understanding. I don't think it can be alone.
It's clear that self-diagnosing using social media is becoming increasingly popular. In fact, one survey found that 48% of people have self-diagnosed themselves in some way in the last year, and a third of them use social media to do it. And it's not just ADHD that's seen a rise in self-diagnosis. Other conditions like OCD and autism are also on the up. What are the implications of people self-diagnosing?
So some of the implications can be good if it's the first step perhaps towards realising that something is not right. I think the issues come when you have lots of people who are perhaps self-diagnosing and then sort of sharing their experiences. So then that kind of, the messaging around their experiences goes to other people who then go, oh, if that's happening to me, then I must have autism or ADHD, when you see, it kind of percolates these myths potentially.
What do you think about the potential of TikTok as a public health tool?
I do think the nature of the platform is it's always going to be pretty unregulated. So I'm not sure it's ever going to be our best public health tool. I think the thing with these sorts of videos is they really simplifying ADHD to it's just a dopamine problem, or that, you know, if you have ADHD, you'll never be able to focus, or you know, I think things that seem very black and white. So anything that's sort of screaming, if you have this, then you have ADHD, is unlikely, I think, to be reliable.
The number of young people asking for an ADHD diagnosis continues to rise. In Wales, it's expected to triple in the next 2 years. The Welsh First Minister says an extra £3 million has been invested to speed up the process in Wales. Meanwhile, in England, adults are waiting anywhere between 12 weeks to over 10 years for a diagnosis, depending on where they live. NHS England says they've launched an independent expert task force to help with this. How would you deal with the NHS backlog?
We've just historically really underestimated how many people would meet the criteria for autism and ADHD. I don't have an easy answer, I'm afraid, but it's certainly not the case that we can just pay for a few more clinicians to do some more assessments. It's definitely gone beyond that now.
And what advice would you give them for anyone watching this who thinks that they may have a neurological disorder?
If you're thinking you've seen something on TikTok perhaps, or a few things on TikTok, and that's really made you think, oh, that experience is like mine, maybe I have autism, maybe I have ADHD. My first piece of advice would be, don't just rely on content from TikTok to tell you that you've got autism or ADHD. Go to a well-respected source, like the National Autistic Society, like ADHD UK, like Aphasic, and look at their resources, which are much more verified and much more backed up by evidence. So use those. If after going through that process and looking at those sources, you still think, actually, this sounds like me, although it is long, the wait list, it's worth engaging with a GP.
So while health services are struggling to keep up with demand, do you think people should be using social media platforms like TikTok as a public health tool? Is the rise in self-diagnosis putting even more pressure on health services? Let us know what you think in the comments. TikTok says whilst they're happy their platform has become a place where people can share their personal experiences of neurodiversity, anyone looking for advice or diagnosis on neurological conditions should contact a medical professional.